What a day have been so far. I'm sure you all cannot expect any less impactful session for the day than what we had so far. What I really like about our Publicist API and Experience Technology community is we always try to find different opportunities to help society by building solutions using different technologies around us. And that's where Salindra and Aradhika session was a testimonial for that. In fact, kudos to all engineers who help society by building solutions for making their life easy on day-to-day basis. Before jumping into my session, I would want to bring out or discuss some of the problems or observations that I have been hearing from different product owners from different brands for their end users. When it comes to usability issues for end user experience for different brands, what I hear from different product owners, I can categorize them into different buckets. So for example, the first type of issues that we keep on hearing is high abandonment rate from the cart page. The second type of issues is high number of callouts from end users for performance. When it comes to the performance, what I have seen that we keep on hearing from different type of users who use different type of devices that they are not able to load the website pages like PLP or PDP as fast as they are able to do on different platforms. Similarly, the other kind of issues is high bounce rate. I'm sure there are many more issues, but when you try to look at all these kind of issues, if you really want to bucket them into a single category, when one thing that comes to my mind is usability issues, right? And if you have usability issues in your platform, I'm sure you would agree with me. It's not easy to fix them overnight. Rather, you need to understand the end user's pattern, the behavior on how they're using your website, like how they're interacting with the different pages or the different or the different components. That's where I thought, let me share my experiences, let me share my learnings that I have been having by working with different brands to build the empathetic user experiences over a period of time. Myself, Vikash Bhardwaj, part of Publicis API in India, and my Twitter handle is @Vikash21. Today, I'm going to talk about how you, being a developer, can bridge the gap between yourself and your end users by bringing the aspects of empathy in your day-to-day working style. And I would want to start with one of the report published by Baymart.com in the year of 2020. And Baymart is very known in publishing the reports for usability in the field of retail. This report talks about various reasons because of which end user abandon the cart page before buying the product or before making a payment. Now, if you look at the various reasons from top to bottom, it talks about X, the cost was too high, or maybe the site was too cumbersome to buy the product because they were asking me to create the account, or maybe the checkout process was too lengthy, or site had so many errors, or the site had performance issues, or the checkout was not feeling secure because the way the password field was implemented. But if you take out the first reason, which is the cost, then it is very clear that cost is not only the reason for cart abandonment. Rather, there are various other reasons, and if I look at, I can categorize them into a single bucket of user experience issues. And when you talk about these user experience issues, in my view, as much as it is responsibility of design team to know best practices of building the world-class experience, it is equally important for us as being developers to know these best practices and to know our end users better, because at the end it is us who develop the interfaces and the code that we write gets deployed, gets served to the end users. Hence, it becomes important for us to know about some approaches that can help us to know more about our end users' environment. Working with different experienced designers and also working with different product owners, what I have realized that showing the empathy is the key to understand our end users' environment. Now, when we talk about empathy, we have to be very sure that we're not talking about here sympathy, or we're not talking about showing the empathy or showing the pity to end users' devices or the environment that they are working into. Rather, it is a process of putting yourself into their shoes and then know about your product. In fact, when you talk about the empathy, the definition, even if you look at the definition, it is very clear that it is a process or it is an ability to see the world through other people's eye and see what they see, feel what they feel, and experience as they do. In fact, in other world, it is very clear that you have to leave all of your preconceived ideas and then start understanding the ideas and thoughts of others instead. Right? Similarly, when I apply the same to my product engineering, we need to unlearn. We need to unlearn about our product and then start learning it from scratch by looking at how our end users, what kind of environment they are using to to use our product. Now, if I look at the real world examples to know more about empathy, it is also look at this biologist. Unless and until biologists don't deep dive into the environment of different species, it is not easy for them to know what's happening in their life. It is not easy for them to predict how is their life is impacted by our ever-changing environments. Similarly, when you talk about NASA's scientists, it is not easy for them to be as precise as they are sitting on the Earth by reading the live data shared by rovers surfing on the surface of Mars. And hence, it is clear that if scientists being far more intelligent entity than us needs to go and look at the real environment of Mars, then how can we be developers be so sure to develop or to build world-class experiences without embracing the end user's environment? If we look at it is all about if you look at all these examples now, if you look at all these definitions, then it is clear that the empathy is all about being observant and working as close as possible to the end user's environment. Now the question comes, what to do and how to observe. Do we need to build all these robots to embrace the end user's environment? Maybe not. I mean, why do we need to build all those fancy robots? Before jumping into the part of how to observe, I think it's important for us to understand what to observe. In today's complex platform ecosystem, there are so many things that you would want to observe on day-to-day life. For example, you would want to observe how the logs are, what are the different type of logs that you want to capture from a end user's perspective. Similarly, you would want to test how the how the screens are behaving on different viewport sizes to see how it is behaving with the responsive design. Similarly, you would want to observe the functional testing, accessibility, and the list goes on. There are so many things that you would want to capture. But today, look, considering time, we would want to we would want to focus on performance, behavior analytics, and usability. And performance being my first favorite because I've been working on performance for quite a long time for different platforms. So let's start with the performance. When it comes to performance, the first thing that comes to my mind is all about bridging the gap between your and end user's environment. When you talk about empathizing with the users for performance, the first thing that you should always understand that the dev environment is not equivalent to the CPU power or is not equivalent to the network speed that our end users might be using. For example, for a retail product, what I generally see that the performance on the mobile device or on a tablet device, and especially on the Android side, where the CPU power is not as good as what we have on the iOS devices, is always slower when I compare to a developer's machine. When I do any development of any product or any feature on my machine, it is important for me to make sure that I do simulate my device or my Mac machine to to become well to go as close as to my end user's device. It is also clearly visible from the run data or from the one of the retail brand data that the mobile performance as compared to the desktop is really almost double of the time. The page load time on the mobile is almost double when it compares to the desktop devices. Hence, the simulation of devices really becomes important in the process of empathizing with users. So device simulation becomes very elementary for pronounced experiences. Unless and until we don't simulate the devices, it becomes very tough to know how the pages are going to render, what will be the speed of our page rendering, on end user's machine, because at the end we are working with very high-end machines. Now, it is also clearly visible with this screenshot. For example, on a Chrome dev on my MacBook Pro, when I took one of the retail brand screenshot, how much time does it take to load, or how much time does it take to parse all of the JavaScript is almost 6 seconds. But when you look at the 4x throttle device, or maybe a slower CPU, it almost goes to the 24 seconds. Similarly, if you really slow down the network, or maybe if you look at the fast 3G machine, it goes to almost 31 seconds. This is almost 4 or 5 times than what you see on your regular MacBook machine. This clearly tells that being a developer, if I'm not looking or if I'm not simulating my end user's machine, I'm really not building for them. Rather, I'm building for myself, right? So then the question comes: how do you simulate all these? How do you empathize with end users' environment? The question comes that there are two big buckets that you should empathize. You should always empathize with the network speed and with the CPU utilization of any of your machines or of your devices. And you should also understand that the relation, why the network speed is important, because with network speed you actually come to know how much time a given asset, or how much time a given static asset is going to take to load in the browser. And if you are always testing on the broadband on the higher speed, you would never come to know that a static asset which is loading on your fast 4G or 5G network with let's say 500 millisecond, on a fast 3G it goes to almost maybe 2 seconds. And similarly with the CPU utilization, you come to know, you get to realization that what are these different constraints on the CPU to render or to execute your JavaScript code. So it is really important to empathize with users' network and the CPU speed. Now, to do that, what I have observed, that the developer toolbar, being you as a developer, Chrome developer toolbar becomes the first choice of simulating the devices. Now, when you simulate with Chrome developer toolbar, there are different options, or there are different type of simulations that you can do. Now, if you really want to know how a page is loading on different devices, or different screens, or maybe different capabilities of CPU power or the network speed, then the film strip view becomes very important. If you are throttling your Chrome browser using the network speed or using the CPU, then you come to know that how the page is loading, or how the components are loading for the page for a given timeline. Right? This really becomes very handy for you to know that about the page rendering cycle for end users. Now, the second thing that really becomes helpful, that you would want to know, like what are the different user-centric performance matrices, that how are they firing on different devices. For example, for a MacBook machine, the first meaningful paint, or the largest contentful paint is let's say going to take 1 second. Now on the Android machine, how much that is going to take is something can be easily figured out by simulating the Chrome browser, which means if you really want to empathize with end users, just make sure that you always keep on throttling your device and keep on checking all these user-centric matrices to know how your end users are seeing the page, or how fast they're able to interact with the page. Because when you look at the matrices like TTI, these all get captured using the simulation on your Chrome developer toolbar. Now this is interesting. This part where if you really want to know that how your JavaScript code is executing on different type of machines, because when you run it on a standard desktop, it is really different than when you compare it to the slow CPU devices. And when you talk about the JavaScript, I mean, you know that there are different threads, there are different tasks. Any task which is taking longer than 50 milliseconds, it actually gets counted as long-running task on the thread or on the timeline of the browser. Now, if you want to know how these tasks are coming or how these tasks are executing on different devices, then yes, simulation is your best friend to know. Now, similarly, when you simulate the network speed using the Chrome Developer Toolbar, you are able to figure out that how much time is taken by the given particular network request. And we have seen, at least in past, what we have seen for a Android browser, if let's say our one of the static asset, one of the JavaScript file was of size, let's say 300 KB in gzip, and now downloading a 300 KB in gzip for desktop browser is really quick. But when it comes to a slow 3G network, I mean that particular 300 KB file almost takes 7 to 8 seconds, which is really problematic for a lot of users who are actually running or who are actually utilizing your platform on the fly and they are not working from home. So let's start, and this is all. So that's also become very important for us to keep on throttling the network along with the CPU. Now, this is interesting. I mean, when throttling using Chrome becomes very helpful, this also becomes very cumbersome at some point of time, because because every time doing it manually becomes very tough. So there has to be a better way to simulate the end user's machine or to simulate end user's behavior, end user's environment, so that we know all these matrices, we know all those threads, how much time they are taking. Now, we do have different solutions. There are so many tools, but what we have used in one of our projects is the Puppeteer, and this is really this Puppeteer really becomes your best friend when you really want to automate a lot of what you just talked about that you can do manually using the Chrome Developer Toolbar. For example, if you really want to find out how much time a page is going to render, or how much time a page is going to take to become interactive, or maybe how much time a page is going to take to to be available for the first interaction for end user. These all things, all kind of matrices, all kind of performance timing APIs are available with the Puppeteer environment. What it really does is it really simulates a browser. It actually fires the browser behind the scene. When you run any script using the Puppeteer, it fires the browser, it runs the page. Now you can simulate your network and you can simulate your CPU, both using the Puppeteer, which is where now these are some of the high level capabilities of Puppeteer. Like I was saying, you can do all that you can do in the Chrome Developer Toolbar. You can do everything. In fact, more than that, because Chrome Developer Toolbar does not give you some of the capabilities in the single tab. You have to go to multiple tabs to do all these things. For example, the accessibility testing, visual testing, emulating device, navigation, timing API, which is again one of my favorite, because I really would want to know how different matrices are firing on end user's machine. When I talk about the navigation API, it also talks about you can also track your custom matrices. I'm sure the session is not all about custom matrices or the navigation API, but it is important to know that when you talk about these simulation tools, they really help you to get to know all those different type of custom matrices as well. Now you can also implement custom asset buzzards. Now this is where it becomes tricky, because if, let's say, for example, you have fixed something, you have fixed your performance issues in your project. Now you don't know within the next build, what if some of your team members like adding a lot of regression to the performance. Now this Puppeteer can also be used for automating your deployment cycles. Now you can set the buzzards, you can set the threshold for different static assets or for different network assets, or for different, let's say, what is the total size of your page static assets. You can put the buzzards on those as well. Now there are different tools you can achieve the same, for example, the site speed IO and Lighthouse or maybe web-based test, but a lot of those does not allow you to run on local with that ease. When the way we are able to use Puppeteer in one of our projects to automate all these kind of checks, really helping us to make sure that we do remain in the defined buzzards for our performance. Now, until now, we have talked about various ways of simulation, For end users, CPU and network speed. Now, how about setting up a continuous empathy model? Now, when you talk about setting up a continuous empathy model for end users, yes, while it is important to set all these simulations with every build, it is also important that we set up our budgets with the right approach. Because if you don't have the right level of budgets, all these simulations become irrelevant. Now, what kind of budgets that really help us to empathize with our end users? These are very critical budgets that we have set up in our projects, which have really given us a good go, like good benefits, like static assets, document size, page level assets. When I say page level assets, I'm talking about that you may have that for a given home page, we would never want to go beyond a 1 MB of all total type of static assets, for example, including images, CSS, static, JavaScript, or maybe fonts. All those kind of checks you can put using these simulations. Similarly, browser and custom matrices. There are so many custom matrices, and also the native browser matrices that you would want to set up for using these simulations. Now you may be wondering what I'm gonna get out of spending all this effort of putting all these simulations or putting these budgets, and that's where it becomes very important, because at the end everybody works for the outcome. And if you're not working for the outcome, it is really going to, at some point of time, you would want to ask yourself, why I'm spending so much of time on setting up these automation tools. Now, at least for our project, we were able to improve the performance of our key pages almost by 50%, and having the pages faster almost for 50% really helped us to have a higher conversion rate. Now, that's about simulating the environments. But simulation works great for instant feedback, right? But it is just simulation. At the end, it is just a simulation. How about field data for users? Because if you remember, we talked about that we would want to cover the simulations as well as the field data. Now, there are different tools that you can use for simulations. But before jumping on the tools, let's talk about why the field data is so important. Because in the simulations, you still get the synthetic matrices, and you still get a lot of synthetic matrices, but you don't get the real data from your end users. Because what if you're still checking the 80th percentile using the synthetic, and the next 90th percentile or maybe next 99th percentile you're not still getting the data for, which is where setting up the RUM tools becomes very important. So, and these RUM tools really helps you to find out different data for your end users, like what are the devices, what are the browsers they are using, regional segmentation, for example, from where the user is really hitting your platform. If the user is accessing your platform from Eastern US or maybe the Western US, or maybe you also get the session recordings, you also get historical analytics data for your platform. So for example, you do a deployment. Now you want to know, as part of this deployment, how I am improving for my end users. That's where the historical data becomes very important, and that's where this field data becomes very important to know how are you improving over a period of time. Now, there are other benefits for setting up these tools and bringing your end users closer to as close as possible. Because at the end, setting up these field tools or these RUM tools, you are actually bringing your users closer, and you are getting more opportunities to empathize with them, to understand their environments. Now, let me quickly talk about, there are two, at least in our project, we're using Impulse and Quantum Metrics. There are other RUM tools that we're using, but for this context, I think the Impulse and Quantum Metrics really plays very important role to understand end users' environment. For example, Impulse gives you an ability to know a lot of device analytics, what kind of device, what kind of reason, what kind of page matrices that you get into, how much your page is taking time to load, what are the DOM number of elements. You get a lot of these data for your end users, which means you are coming closer to your end users, and to do the analysis using their actual environments. Nothing beats that, I'm sure, because synthetic it's still a synthetic. I mean, you can achieve a lot, but if you do have the actual data, that, I mean, nothing can beat that. Similarly, what I talked about, the historical view of your improvements, that's where I think as soon as if you are using these, if you are really simulating end users, then at any point of time, if you are making a deployment, you actually come to know that if there is any impact. For example, you see the blue bar. I mean, with this particular deployment, we can see that the some of our matrices are going on the higher side. And this is all field data, which means now you can do analysis that what kind of device, because on which this data is going higher. Because when you start looking, when you start deep diving this data, you come to know, hey, if it is Android device, or if it is iOS device, or if it is regular device, or if it is regular desktop, which is causing all these problems. Now the next is quantum metrics. This is the, I think, the heights of bringing the environment's user closer to you, because based on our experience with this tool, you can actually record, you can actually replay the actual end user sessions, how they are working with your platform. You can actually see all the browsers related history, what kind of JavaScript, what kind of errors, what kind of, like, how the page is looking, how users are interacting, where are they clicking. I mean, you can see a lot of heat maps. You can get each and every detail of how users are impacting, what kind of performance issues they are facing. For example, if they are clicking on a link, now while they're clicking on a link, how much time it is taking for them to for your browser or for your platform to provide that feedback to the end users. Now, the last but not the least is the A/B testing tool, by where you empathize with end users by giving them the multiple choices of different components, or of different pages, or of different views, and then ask them to decide which component they like to work with. I mean, it's while you are giving the multiple options, it is not that you are asking them which one they like. Rather, it is giving them, rather it is distributing the component list to a different set of users. For example, out of 100% users, 100% traffic, you would want to serve a different component to your 30% of the traffic, while the other type of component you would want to serve to another next 40% of the users, while the rest for 30% of the users, you would want to still use the third view of the component, and then see which component is really helping you to have a better conversion. And now I would like to submit my talk by requesting each one of you to set up an empathy model with all of your users